Okay, so we don't need that one. All right, item 1.4, approval of the agenda. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Go ahead.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
We
Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Section 2, board liaison and committee updates. 2.1, legislative.
Not much at this time. There's nothing going on in Columbus because of the fight between the two individuals, plus the fact that as of Friday, they had not received their committee assignments yet, so they weren't doing a thing. In fact, Mr. Hall was in Indianapolis all weekend at Fire Chiefs Convention, so they expect to get some legislation that they can work on, but not much until this argument as far as who wants to be the leader of the group up there gets settled. Bottom line.
Sounds very constructive.
Yes. And we were going to have a get-together up there tomorrow with the legislative people, but he told us not to come. He said, you may get 5 minutes. And he said, I'll set you up where you can see the individuals you want to talk to sometime in June or July. So AJ and I will make that trip whenever that happens.
Yeah, I would just go when it's more constructive.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, and something's a little bit more planned.
right. That's it.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. 2.2, Butler Tech. I do not see Mr. Guido.
No, he said that there's a chance, work-related, he may not be able to make it, so him not being here, I assume that's the reason why.
That's fair. All right, 2.3, finance.
Nothing from finance at this time. We'll be meeting quarterly, so we'll be meeting, probably be meeting next month, maybe. I think that's, if my memory serves me right, but
Yes.
could be wrong.
Cool. All right, so we'll look forward to that May update then. All right, 2.4, student achievement.
Okay, so for student achievement, we have the primary April Hornet of the Months. We have Max Baker, Peyton Shepard, Ellie Merriweather, Ian Zapeta Guerra, Samuel Boggs, Jepson Evans, Jude Wims, Liam Sandoval, Lilieth Weiss, Madison Fink, Scott Springer, Ahana Katawada, Camden Carleys, Riley Ellington, Asayla Johns, Cohen Green, Jack Ryan, Callie Isabel, Adelina Cross, Jocelyn Cruz, Quinn Mullins, Nija Prey, and Xander Atkins. For the elementary student of the month, for second grade, we have Bailey Brosh, Sarmeet Kaur, Harley Ann Maring, Cece Cash, Ridwan Abdullah, June Cole, Pratik Raj, Sophia Leon Perez, Avery New. Third grade, we have Ronnie Davis, Gontas Badasha, Laura Lee Work, Anna McGuire, Alexandra Blayton, Lennox Hendrickson, Mariah Sheeler, Gwen Funk, Harrison Hayes. In fourth grade, we have Blake Crutcher, Hannah Fortner, Misha Kukaharenko, Logan Hall, Marley Livesay, Nate Stom, Corey Gillespie, Lily Almond. In fifth grade, we have Elizabeth Brandt, Emma Stout, Cameron Denny, Kinley Wyatt, Aiden Berkland, Violet Levering, Lillian Moore, Leah Baum, and Badesh Kanal. For sixth grade, we have Aisley Hayden, Juliana Owens, Daisy Lopez, Jenny Adekari, Lauren Roundtree, Landon Clark, Andres Gallego, and Ashton Howard. So congratulations to those students. For the junior high, we have seventh grade Hannah Tribby. Ms. Boggs says that Hannah is passionate about her grades and success. She is diligent with completing work and asking questions. She participates in class and shows up each day with a positive attitude, and I appreciate her hard work. For eighth grade, Mr. Capper says about Shane Cremens, Shane has been an outstanding student and young man throughout this school year. He works hard and participates in class every day. Shane has very high character and integrity. He is always doing the right thing, even if nobody is looking. He has shown so much growth in his academics as well. I am very proud of him for all his hard work this semester. Monroe is lucky to have such a great young man at our school. So congratulations to the Monroe Junior High Students of the Month. For high school, I'd like to say congratulations to and a great job for all that was involved in the play Anastasia. From everybody that was participated in the play, from behind the scenes, the costumes, the background set, makeup, the pit, and the actors and actresses that were on stage. I'd like to congratulate all the participants or recipients of the Jesse Mayhab. That was a good evening and a great dinner. It was good to see all the students that got recognized. And the band and choir went to state this past weekend. The symphonic band performed at state and received a 2 rating. And the chorale choir received a superior 1 rating in Class B, which is the highest rating a performance ensemble can receive. So congratulations to those students. And that's all that we have.
Cool. All right, section 3, communications, 3.1 MEA.
Not here.
Okay, moving on. Section 3.2, comments from the public. Seeing none, we will move on to section 3, or item 3.3, superintendent's update.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. I have a facility update that I wanted to share. I had shared earlier that Friday we had a meeting scheduled with the OFCC, and they broke the news to us that we are now eligible for CFAP and will be transitioning from ELP to CFAP. CFAP is the Classroom Facilities Assistance Program, which the main difference is we were proceeding with ELP, which meant that the community needed to front all the funds and we would be reimbursed at some point down the road. And now that we're moving to CFAP, it means that we partner with the OFCC, and as we go through the process, we each share our portion of the project, which takes a tremendous burden off the local taxpayers in the short term, which is a very, very positive thing. They gave limited information at this point, so it is very exciting news, but we have actually a follow-up meeting already again tomorrow with them, and we'll be, obviously in the next week or so, we're going to be getting a lot more updated information. As far as timeline that we've been talking about, that won't affect the timeline for still going for a November 5th bond issue, which means that the June 24th and July 22nd resolutions at the board meetings still need to be in place. And I believe at the May meeting, we will have to pass a resolution if the board wants to enter into the CFAP partnership with OFCC. So those are our immediate timelines. There's a lot of unknown right now, especially the updated pricing costs. So as we try to make our decision, that's going to be a major, major factor. And we don't have any of that information yet. We do know that, obviously, that when we go for a bond issue for a new high school, it will be a smaller bond issue, which is a good thing for the local taxpayers because the state, again, will be partnering with us and they will share a large portion of that. We then need to kind of make our decision as we get the updated numbers. Our options are to go for a bond issue that would just be the new high school, and that's called a segmented project, where we do the high school now, and then when that's completed, we reevaluate down the road and do a phase 2, which would be the master plan of repurposing and updating this current building here. There's pros and cons to each, and again, a lot of that's going to depend on the numbers when we get those updated. I do want to share that as we move into CFAP, that there are it changes the process for us a little bit. They are, as we go through ELP, we kind of were in control of timelines and decisions, and not that we're not in control, but we're in partnership with OFCC. So they kind of we have specific rules that we have to follow. They set the timelines. We actually had a meeting scheduled today with the legal counsel to go over all of the paperwork for the postings of selecting an architect. So we do not do that anymore because now we have to, again, it's a process that we go through with OFCC, and they do that after the bond issue passes. They send that out, and then it's a partnership. They have an equal decision-making to we do on the selection of the architect and the CMR. And then, again, those are not done until after the bond issue is passed. So, again, the tasks ahead for us in this area is that we need to work with OFCC to get all the updated pricing costs. I do want to say, and I meant to say this earlier, and I reiterate it numerous times, we met with OFCC 3 to 4 weeks ago, I believe, and they had shared with us that we were probably 4 to 5 years away from getting our number. The reason that we got bumped up to where we are receiving the funds now is because of the current economic climate in the, not just the state and the country, but with the high tax increase in the counties across the state of Ohio. Only 2 bond issues in the entire state of Ohio passed at the last election. And so people are passing. So that is just something that I want to mention that we need to be very mindful of as we are making decisions. We need to do kind of set a budget that's going to meet our needs and meet the needs of the community and be responsible, and also look, okay, what is the community going to support? I think when I shared the news, I think Mr. Grant and Mr. Leeds both asked about, is there a way that you can, okay, here are the 2 options. Here's the master plan with everything included. Here's the plan with just the high school. Can you run them both? And you cannot. We did find that out today, that you have to make a decision. So, again, between now and I know we have a work session scheduled in May. We'll have all those numbers so we can really make a very educated decision for our community. I do want to say we had initially thrown out the date of May 1st as well. If I could just have you guys, I think everybody was available then, just kind of pencil it in when we meet with OFCC. We're going to say we have these 2 dates. Which is better for your timelines to get us there, or do we need both if we do? So I just wanted to mention that, and I'll send out a reminder.
Because we had May 1st and 8th, right?
Right, May 1st and 8th set
I think we're all leaning
aside.
towards the 8th?
Yes,
So
but,
I have both dates. so.
Okay, great. So, again, we need to by June 24th, we need to have that exact millage set. Which, again, working in coordination with OFCC, they did not seem concerned that we couldn't meet our timelines for that November ballot, so.
And that was 6/24?
Yes.
June 24th?
Yep.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How can we come up with a figure we're going to need if the architects aren't on board to actually have the levy?
So it's what they call is a paper exercise. What they do is our enrollment projections, and they design the high school the square footage, because your price comes out of what the building is per square foot. And they will base that on our enrollment. And so we look at that, and then if we want to, then they'll figure that exact cost. Then we have to decide, do we want to add some more to add some additional, have some for making some of our common areas, our cafeterias, our gyms, those, do we want to add some, not contingency, but additional dollars to make sure those areas, because those areas can't be changed later. You can't, I mean, you can, but it's much more expensive. So, and they will work with us on that. And Fanning Howie is still, we did pay them that small amount that they're still working with us on that piece. But as far as the design phase, that comes after the bond issue to get into the nuts and bolts of everything that's going on, so.
Yeah, what I was looking at is the LFI that we would have will be generated by the public. So that will not be generated before the levy or included in the levy, because they don't have a picture of what the school would look like and what they would want to add.
Right. What our responsibility in this process is, we need to set the budget. We need to figure out what it's going to cost for the building, and if we want to add some additional locally funded, but we need to set the budget to figure out exactly what what the community will support. And then when you go out, the architects will, they design the building, and the CMR will, work with things to make it a very nice building that the community can be proud of, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I shared the OFCC is, we do have a meeting scheduled tomorrow, so hopefully we'll get some additional information, or at least a timeline of when we're going to get the updated numbers. So, of course, I will keep you up to date about that. But overall, it is very, very positive news for this community, so.
Absolutely.
A couple more quick things that I wanted to share is that with the, we did the paving last year, and the roof is still planning to be replaced this summer. We're allowed to continue with that, and that we will still get reimbursement for those pieces as well, so that's good. As far as the second drive, we're continuing to pursue that. We're working with ODOT, county, and the city. That's not going, regardless, that's a separate issue. That's something that we feel we need regardless, so we're going to continue to pursue that as well. The next piece that I wanted to talk about is the governor in his last budget hearing talked about the importance of the science of reading, and that he wanted that to be a stress for all schools across the state of Ohio. So they came out with a mandate that all teachers had to go through science of reading training. And when I say all teachers, I mean every single teacher, regardless of subject area, grade level. There are varying levels of training that they need to go through. The elementary teachers that teach language arts, the secondary language arts teachers, it's just over 22 hours of professional development that they have to go through. I think there's 3 levels, maybe 4, I don't know, there's different levels down to about a 6.5 hour is the lowest, that even administrators, a band director that has nothing to do with reading instruction, they still have to go through that. So with that being said, it's not just a Monroe thing, it's across the state of Ohio. So we are working on a plan to how do we get our teachers to do that. It's just dumping one more thing on their plate. Initially, there is a stipend from the state of Ohio that's supposed to be associated with this, although what they budgeted in the state budget does not cover that reimbursement. So I know they have not come out with any information about how the teachers are going to be reimbursed. They want us to have them go through the training, pay them, and then they'll reimburse us at some point.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how that's going to work yet, so.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah. So, again, this isn't an option. It's something that we have to do with our staff. So we are even looking at possibly, because it's for a big portion of our teachers, it's 22 hours. And to ask them to do, we ask our teachers to do so much anyway. So we are looking at possible, maybe even adding some professional development days for them to get it done. But then there are rules about the stipend that we're hearing mixed messages. So I just wanted to put that in your ear that is coming the teacher's way. The other piece is that we're hearing that the next thing is some sort of training for math instruction in a couple of years. So what I did want to share is that our calendar seems to change a lot just because of these sort of things coming down from the state. And it's been practiced to put a calendar out. I actually have the calendar for let's see, what is this, 24, 25, that's already approved. We have the 25, 26 that I was going to bring to the board. And honestly, what I believe I was going to do is we're going to put that on our website that says tentative calendar. because the major things that parents want to know, first day of school, winter break, spring break, those kind of things, those aren't going to change. But some of the little things here and there that the state keeps throwing at our staff that we would have to adjust, instead of having to bring it to you and then bring it back, say, hey, we moved this one day here, or, so it would just maybe be 1 year out as a formal approval, so.
So is this like a one-time thing?
Yes, for now. We know, once they get through it, they are done, and it's not something they have to do every year, so.
What about teachers that come in years after?
So if they are brand new and they do not have the training, they will have to go through that training as well.
Is this from the new State Board of Education underneath the governor?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's from the governor. It was in his budget bill. So he opened with the science of reading in his State of the Union after. So it's definitely one of his initiatives. So
One question, is there multiple firms that are going to be performing this, or is it just one firm?
it is a online training.
Okay, I was going to ask.
That is from the state. And so it is a training where you have to put in the seat time for 22 hours. It's not one of those, not that any of our staff or myself would ever do this, but if, as an online training, you watch the video and walk away and then come back and take the quiz at the end. It is interactive, that if you are not interactive with it, it starts the video over at the beginning of that section. So you actually have to, our staff will have to put in those number of
Those
hours.
numbers of
So,
hours, yeah. But if it's 22 hours, I mean, that's a couple,
even if we.
in
if we-
service days, that's more
right.
than, it's more
If
than
we added
one.
two, it
Yeah.
still wouldn't be enough.
It's not enough.
But we already have some
So-
built in. Most of them are already planned for next year, but we could adjust to get some time out of there. But I'll probably, definitely by May, I'll have a recommendation for how we're going to handle that. And maybe by then, we'll have an idea of the reimbursement
Yeah,
piece.
yeah.
I don't want to say, go do it on your own and we'll reimburse you, and then we find out they're not getting reimbursed.
Do we have an
Or-
idea,
Right.
have they given any idea what the cost of the training is yet?
It doesn't cost us anything to do the training, but the stipend that, and it doesn't say may pay a stipend, it says we will pay a stipend and we may ask for reimbursement. So again, I know it's shocking, but when the state of Ohio came out with some things, there's some unclear pieces to this that we're still trying to work through, so. But again, I think that we often get these kind of things and teachers just get dumped on and dumped on and dumped on. So if there's some things that we can do, it's a required thing. If there's some things that we can do to help them get through this, and again, it's not just a section of
It's
teachers.
everyone.
It is
It's
every
everybody.
single teacher, so.
I tell you what, it looks to me like a slap in the teacher's face. Who knows how to educate a kid to read? The governor and his group were teachers.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
just a personal side note, my wife is a math instructional coach, and she is required to do 22 hours of reading instruction, so. And she started it today and is not in a good mood.
What about
Because
like
she did about-
intervention teachers and special
Intervention
education?
teachers have to go through the 22 hours, any language arts.
So
There is a
basically
whole
any
chart
full-time
that
teacher.
shows who
Wow.
has to do what, and I can share that with all of you. But, yeah, there is a big portion of us, our teachers, that have to go through that 22
Wow.
hours, so.
you'd have to do that with a long-term sub too, wouldn't you?
I don't think with the long-term subs, they have to be the teacher of record, our regular employee, so. Now, if they're a long-term sub and then we hire them the next year, they would have to go through it, so. And it will be a requirement for employment, like, if a
Yeah.
teacher says, I'm not doing it, this is ridiculous, I'm not doing it, we aren't able as a district to employ them, so. Now, we do have till June of 2025, so we have a little bit of time.
Okay.
All next
Okay,
school
okay.
year.
Okay.
To get it figured out.
And
so.
private schools obviously don't have to operate under these same,
Quiet. You boy.
I just wanted to make sure.
That is correct.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
Well, because they don't care about reading.
Yeah, obviously they know how to teach kids how to read.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they know the science behind reading.
Reading.
Behind it, yes.
They created it.
What a weird name. Oh, man. Thank you, Robert.
I did want to share at the, our work session, we'll have the MCS agents there with us to help Mike and Holly that have been working through, and they know the whole CFAP process backwards and forward. All be able to answer all our questions and help us, so.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to section 4, treasurer's business. Item 4.1, approval of the minutes.
I recommend approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on March 18th.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 4.2, approval of the treasurer's financial report.
I recommend approval of the treasurer's financial report for March 31st.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
I just have a few comments, but I will keep them short. Oh, the other one, please. Is there another attachment? The one from the email? Or did I do the wrong? Oh, no. I apologize. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Well, the first slide, this is a repeat of what's in the actual financial report, the detail one. And it basically says we are on track as we have been for the year. And then that's good.
It's fine.
There we go.
We just continue to perform better than the forecast. This is our current outlook, and we're still operating under the November forecast figures. So if we go down to the next one, this is just kind of a quarter to date from July to March. Revenues, it's our November forecast budget through versus our actuals through March. As you can see, we're 75% through the year, and we are pretty much on target in most revenue categories. We did receive our Butler County settlement in March, but we did not receive our Warren County one until like Friday. So I had hoped to do a real estate update for you, but that'll be next time. But even with that, we are 96% collected on our estimate for taxes. So with our Warren County coming in, and I believe that one's around 600,000. And then the only other comment is that our other revenue, all other operating expenses, we're running a little low in that area because our TIF payment reimbursement from the city won't come back until April. And then on the expenditure side, at 75% through the year, mostly everything is on target. The one comment I'll make is in the supplies and materials area. Those uptick in May and June as people are replenishing for next year and trying to spend down their budgets. But we also have one, possibly two textbook purchases that will be pushed into next year. So we will not likely spend them this year. And I think that is it. Any questions?
Did the Butler County show an increase?
Yes, it did. It did. I don't have an exact figure yet, but it was an increase.
Regarding revenue, have we heard anything regarding any back pay from Rockies Express yet?
I've heard absolutely nothing, and what I'm being told is that they won't even actually update their values until October. So I need to find the right people at the county to talk to get more information. And as far as the settlement, I still only have the email from my contact at the county. I've looked on Department of Taxation, website from their board of review, looking for anything official, and I still can't find anything official.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure how long it takes for that to be posted. So right now, all of my information is from one single email from the county, and
Okay.
I'm a little nervous about that. And, you know, I'd like to know for sure too. I guess I want to feel good that Rockies is actually going to pay all the back pay that they owe.
Yeah.
So
I'm hearing it'll be the last quarter of the year.
it could be. If I'm just worried that they will let it go delinquent. We will see. But hopefully, since that actually went through Board of Review, they will pay. Yes.
All right.
But I will present a full analysis of the taxes at the next meeting once I have all the numbers in. So,
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Aye. Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 4.3,
I recommend to approve the bond fund report for March 2024.
may I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Is all the money where it's supposed to be?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Moore. All right. Section 5, Superintendent's Personnel Business, item 5.1.
It is recommended that the board approve resignations from the following employees.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Questions or comments? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Aye. Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.2.
It's recommended the board approve the following long-term preschool substitute for the remainder of the year.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.3.
It's recommended that the board approve the hiring of the following new employee for the 24-25 school year.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? All right.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.4.
It's recommended the board approve the following extracurricular contracts.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Aye. Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.5.
It is recommended the board approve the following certified employee for continuing contract.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.6.
It's recommended the board approve a one-year leave for professional study during the 24-25 school year.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any questions? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Abstain. Motion carried. Item 5.7.
It's recommended the board approve stipends for the following teachers for mentoring student teachers during the spring semester.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Is that a total amount for each of them?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Okay.
It does seem low.
Doesn't
It was
seem like a lot of
probably-
mentoring.
It may have been an observation.
Is it like?
Yeah, I
an
don't
hour
know if it was a
observation?
full
Yeah.
student teaching experience or,
Gotcha.
I don't remember, to be honest.
Okay. I was gonna say.
Even when it is, it's still not a
Yeah.
large sum.
We
Not a lot.
appreciate you guys for helping
Yes.
out. Thank you very much.
For sure.
Any other questions?
No.
I'm sure there's plenty of comments. We'll skip those. All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.8,
It's recommended for the approval of an MOU with the MEA agreement to fall play supplemental category.
can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any comments or questions?
Nope.
Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. All right, moving on to Section 6, Superintendent's Other Business, Item 6.1.
It is recommended that the board accept the following donations.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Thank you for the donation.
Yep,
Yeah,
thank you.
very much appreciated. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.2.
It's recommended the board approve the following students for early graduation.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any comments or questions?
I just have a question.
Yes.
It seems like this year, compared to previous years, me being on the board, I'm seeing more of an uptick of more early graduation. Is there a particular reason there's more, or is it
We
just-
have students that are in the program where they're online credits and they're getting credit for work. And a lot of times, I think we used to do it more, maybe a couple times a year, but sometimes, a lot of times, the reason we're doing it now is because if we don't set their graduation date, their attendance counts against us for the remainder of the year, and a lot of their jobs need the requirement of, hey, you've got that
Graduated.
diploma, so they can continue, they can go to the full-time.
Okay.
So that's kind of when we're doing it, as they are finishing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there's smaller, because usually there's like 6 or
Yes.
7 and
Yep.
1 or 2 meetings, and these have
Correct.
been
Yep.
like
Like
2.
one or
It's
two.
like
Yeah.
December usually, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have noticed that they've been on several meetings. now.
Yeah.
All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Yes. Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.3.
It is recommended the board approve an agreement with Premier Health for the athletic training services. And again, that's a 3-year contract starting July 1st of this year.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any questions or comments?
I did want to share, I've shared already that, the model has changed for athletic trainers, where they often provided for an athletic trainer with no charge to the school, and that model has changed not just for Monroe, but across all school districts. And when we did a request for a quote from just about every health provider that does this, this was by far the most economical contract, just because as we are current partners, instead of starting with the full amount year one, they phased it in. And if you see the pricing, that's why next year it's a much smaller amount and it phases into the full amount. So
So-
all the other ones, it started with that highest number, actually, and it was even higher than the third number there, so.
So does that relinquish their hold on the field,
So does it relinquish their?
on the football field? Can we name it? Can we get somebody else's name on it?
I don't believe that has anything to do with the agreement.
Well, they offered it before,
Well, they've got signage up there
Yeah,
right now when you
there'll be
walk
some
in.
signage for athletic training, but it does not count as stadium naming rights, so. I don't believe there's anything in there
No.
that prevents us from.
okay, then we
There's
do.
still some signage.
Yeah, still some signage around the trainer's room and around the stadium.
Yeah.
The Premier is our athletic training health
The only thing we're
provider. so.
preventing is direct competitors, medical organizations.
Yeah.
Services that they would offer.
Okay. Does this new one, because I know we supposedly had a doctor that was supposed to be on the field, which,
There is a doctor, but they won't guarantee one at the football games. None of the providers
Do that anymore?
So,
okay. I just know, I think that's kind of a burden sometimes on Hogan not having a doctor readily available.
yeah, I mean, we do have the EMTs that are here
Yeah.
for every single game, so.
Yep.
Continue
Okay.
to work with them, so.
Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.4.
It's recommended the board approve repainting of the primary school gym floor, and that'll be completed this summer.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Do we know the timing of this, or is that projected?
End of,
July 22nd.
yeah, there we go. In July, it'll be done prior to school starting.
Was it like a 4-week process?
We've done the 12th, so it's been roughly 3 weeks.
Okay.
It'll be done prior to that, but they can get back on it on the 12th.
Yeah.
So that's prior to school starting, so
Cool. Yeah, that floor desperately needs it, so
Yes.
glad to hear that we're
Yep.
prioritizing that.
it'll help out I know that gets used all the time for our youth
Lots of youth
sports.
basketball,
Yep.
cheer, and
Yeah.
baseball, and everything, softball, everything's in there.
Good.
Any other questions? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Aye. Mr. Carpenter.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.5.
It is recommended the board approve restoration and repair of the main campus flat roof.
May I get a motion?
So moved?
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions?
That is a big number, but remember that goes towards our
Yeah.
ELP funding, so we will get reimbursement for that.
And I'm sorry, do we know the percentage of it?
I believe for that, I think that is the 68%. Yeah, so that's a nice, good chunk of it.
Will this also be over the summer as well?
Well, yes, yes.
And
Is this roof still under warranty?
No,
Just rolling off, I think we're in this last year, so it's coming off this year.
It's usually how it works. They're pretty good at.
Yeah, I thought, okay,
Planned obsolescence.
that
And
sucks.
Jesse, what's the life of the new roof?
It's in that same 20-year warranty.
That's all it is, rubber roof,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I thought it was a 25.
So let's
Most rubber roofs are 20. That's the highest you'll get, unfortunately.
All right, any other questions?
They take it clear down, what do they do? As far as Jesse, how, they take it clear down?
No, this is not a complete tear down.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Cover over?
They apply it over top?
Yep.
They'll apply,
Yep.
they'll apply with it. They're doing installation core kind of analysis and stuff here Thursday evening, and then we'll be determining what kind of level of debt they go in next.
Cool.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a few years since I've been in that industry, but this will be the only cover over we'll be allowed to do.
This surface has, it's built up, kind of, they have an option to keep going a little bit, so I don't have a definite, but there's a possibility that this may be something that can go on and they continue to maintain, but it's not going to work, so
Get another 20 years.
rather than full membrane, which is like a recoating.
Okay.
But it does up the warranty, and because it's the resurfacing, we were able to do, we initially priced to replace part of it. It was only going to be maybe half. Is that accurate, Jesse?
If we, compared to a full new roof.
Yes, yes. So we were able to do the entire roof for almost the same price as it would have been at about, it's about half the price, and it still gives us the 20-year warranty, so.
Okay.
And Loveland went through this process a couple of years ago, and we reached out to them. They've been very happy with the resurfacing, so.
I'm glad to hear we get a lot of that back, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That helps.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.6.
It's recommended the board approve the following overnight trip.
I think 6.6 is the student code of conduct. I got you.
Sorry. Yes, it's recommended the board approve the student conduct for the 24-25 school year. That was, any minor changes were redlined.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any comments or questions?
Nope.
Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.7.
It's recommended the board approve the following overnight trip.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any comments or questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.8.
This is just the first reading for the spring update from Neola. For any policy revisions, it's actually a smaller than we've had the last few times, but take a look at those, and then they'll be up for approval next month.
Okay, so no action.
No action.
All right. Section 7, comments from the board. Mr. Leeds.
First of all, I'd like to echo the list of students for the awards that they got that Debbie talked about at the beginning of the meeting. It's fantastic, and the fact that we're winding down, the kids are still in tournaments and stuff, that's great. And the other thing that I'm glad to see that the money issue is taken care of, and we can move forward with what we're doing as far as the building and as far as the driveway is concerned, because that's something we need to get pushing on. Other than that, good.
Cool. Mr. Fulham.
All right. High fives to our students and staff who were recognized earlier this month as our Students and Staff of the Quarter. It's a great opportunity to recognize some of our very best for their hard work and commitment to Hornet Country. It's especially exciting to see the pride across the faces of the families there to support their children. High fives to our talented theater department for a fantastic spring performance of Anastasia. It's always a treat to see the hard work that goes into putting on a multiple performance weekend for the cast, crew, and musicians. High fives to all involved in putting on this year's father-daughter dance at the elementary school. It's a very special evening for my family, getting to take part with my daughter and joining her friends for a great social event. It's something that I really look forward to each year. High fives to our staff and students who navigated the state testing debacle. I appreciate everyone for taking on the challenge and making sure that we were able to get our students prepped as we dealt with technology outages throughout the entire state. I want to take this opportunity to thank our entire staff for a great year as we begin the descent into summer break. It's a very busy time for all of us in Hornet Country. Enjoy the final days with your students and know that you are supported and appreciated by this board, administration, and community. And to our senior students, please take a moment to pause and reflect on all that you have accomplished together, not only this year, but over the past 13 years. Enjoy your prom this weekend, and please remember to be safe while having a fun and exciting evening together. I am looking forward to celebrating with you as you make your way across the stage under the stadium lights at commencement. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fulham. Mrs. Hagedorn?
Oh, you're jumping over
Oh,
me.
yeah.
It's all
Dave might go last this time.
That's good.
Why break tradition?
Well, I'd like to reiterate what I had mentioned earlier. Congratulations to all the Jesse May Have recipients. That's quite an honor for all those students, and it was a privilege for me to be there to enjoy the dinner and to see all the recognition that was happening. I'd also like to mention the Washington, D.C. trip coming up to all the students and the chaperones that are going on that for safe travels, to learn lots and to create memories, because I think that would be a fabulous trip. So I just want to say safe travels to that. That's all I have for now.
Cool. Thank you, Ms. Hagedorn. All right, Mr. Grant, your turn.
I'll echo what Mr. Leeds said. That was a great phone call on Friday regarding the
Absolutely.
OFCC. So that actually made for a great end of the week. So that was definitely good news. I'm looking forward to the process of what's to come on that next step. Cannot believe we're about a month away from graduation. So this year has absolutely flown by. But I want to congratulate and thank our staff and our administration for everything they've done for this year to get us through this year. And also, everyone, be safe at prom and have a great time. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Yeah, you're right, man. There's like not much left to say once you get down here.
There's never anything to
crazy.
say.
Crazy.
Just say ditto.
I know. But I do want to give a shout out to the junior high softball team. They've been absolutely wrecking it this year. So, and the team's mostly 8th graders, so I'm very much looking forward to this batch of girls moving into high school. It'll be exciting to watch them out here on Hornet Field playing varsity next year. I do get to chaperone a field trip on Thursday with Mrs. Keith's class to the Air Force Museum. So those kids have no idea what they're in for. 'Cause I love the Air Force Museum. It is like my whole job is airplane. So they're in so much trouble. It's going to be amazing.
You're gonna miss the bus coming.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be like,
Twice
Mr.
as
Carpenter,
long.
please be quiet. This is the worst field trip ever. But
The 2025 trip has already been canceled.
yeah, probably.
You have a test on the way home?
That's a good idea. I like that idea, Tom.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be fun. It'll be exciting. But and lastly, Anastasia was awesome. The kids did a great job. Costumes were phenomenal. Partly, Hazel was there, so I'm a little biased, but yeah, every time I go, it just makes me more excited for the next one. So looking forward to the next play, which they're working on a original right now. So
That's the one act, the student one.
yeah, so that'll be it was the Keith boys who wrote this one, correct? Yeah, so that'll be exciting and interesting, and
Nice.
I'm sure it'll be great as well. So if you have an opportunity, go check that out. But yeah, nothing else. So with that, Section 8, adjourn to executive session. Well, it's going to be
We have a different purpose
Amended.
for that. I have the code section. Sorry. To consider the purchase of property for public purposes, the sale of property at competitive bidding, or the sale of other disposition of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for use property in accordance with Section 505.10 of the revised code. That is revised code Section 121.22G2.
Thank you, Mrs. Moore.
You're welcome.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Any action?
No action will be taken.
All right.
Cool.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. And also you. Yes. You guys, I don't know why. You guys were great.
I don't know why you want to be outside today, or, yeah.
It'll be 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
It'll be 5 minutes. We just want to fill you in.
You know, this,